Hello, this is Gardener Jen coming to you from Temple Hill Academy in Newburgh, and today we are going to be transplanting some kale seedlings. Kale is a really hardy leafy green that's super popular for salads and smoothies and sautéed. It's really great a lot of different ways. And there are many different varieties of kale. You can see that I'm transplanting 3 varieties today. I'm not totally sure which varieties they are. I suspect the one on the left might be a curly kale of some sort. The one in the middle seems to be a red kale of some sort, maybe a red Russian. And the one on the right is a lacinato kale, also called dinosaur kale or dino kale, because its leaves look a bit like dinosaur skin. So these seedlings I'm transplanting were actually started indoors. They were started probably under a grow light in some trays. The reason they would be started indoors is to give them a head start so that once it's warm enough for them to be planted outside, they are already quite big. So that means we'll be able to start harvesting our kale sooner. So if you don't have a grow light system and you can't start seeds indoors, that's okay. You can buy starts like this at your local farmer's plant sale or seedling sale, something like that. If you have to, you can even buy them at places like Home Depot. So the first thing I want to do is I space my seedlings out so I know that they're going to have enough room. Then I gently move the hay out of the way and grab my trowel and start to dig a little hole for the seedling. Now this hole doesn't have to be super deep, I just want it to be deep enough to fit the roots of the plant inside. Then I gently place my plant into the hole, holding onto the bottom of the stem. I cover it up with a bit of soil and I tuck it in. Now you'll see the same process from a different perspective. This is a broccoli plant. Do you see the leaves are a little different? So I dig my hole. I want to make sure it's deep enough for the roots. So I'm checking and seeing if it's deep enough. It is. And then I gently push the soil back in, just enough to cover the roots, and I cover the rest up with some hay. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for the rest of the plants that I already spaced out. So now you can see all of my kale seedlings have been transplanted. I try to leave at least a foot between each plant because kale plants can get pretty big. We want to make sure they have room to grow to their full glory. Once you have your seedlings transplanted, it's important to make sure you give them a deep watering. They will be thirsty. It's also helpful to give them a little bit of fertilizer within the first few days of transplanting and to cover them with a fabric called row cover to make sure that they don't get eaten by any cabbage moth caterpillars. Once you've done all that, you are all set to have big, beautiful kale plants that won't require too much maintenance besides fertilizing and making sure there aren't any caterpillars on them, and will give you delicious leafy greens all summer long through the fall, and if you're lucky, maybe even into the winter. One very cool thing about kale is that it can grow up through the frost and can sometimes even survive the winter. So if you take a look here, you can see this is actually a kale that is coming back from last year. The gardener at this school left these big stems in the ground, and from the bottom, new growth is starting to emerge. That's all for today. Thanks for learning with me, gardeners. See you next time.